So through the field of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, people have studied, scientists have studied how we behave, how our minds behave, how we think and work our way through life. So one of the patterns that was, now this is of course all people that are using their mind, living in their mind, and studying mind from within the mind. This is very important because the mind first has to know itself. When your mind knows itself, it turns itself off. Now, I'll go into more details about that. But basically, when you have a clear story of what you are and how you function, you throw in who or why if you want, that's not actually that important. And you have an understanding of all of your experiences that you integrate and how they all fit into a puzzle, into a continuous story, into a clear timeline of I was born and here I am now, and this is where I am, and this is my world, and this is how it works, and this is how it fits in. The entire story, when there's no more questions, when you have no more questions about yourself and about your past, it folds up. And now your mind stays clear. You have the capacity to now think about something new with a perfectly clear blank slate, tabula rasa, right? A clear slate. Then you think of something, and when you're finished, you can erase the entire thing and go back to having a clear mind. In order to know that, in order to do that, there's a couple of things that are important to know. First is that whenever you're doing something you've never done and you need to learn, you're starting from a place of unconscious incompetence. It means you don't know what you don't know. Have you flown an airplane before? Yes. Have you piloted an airplane by yourself?
With assistance.
Sorry?
With assistance.
With assistance, right. So, but you haven't. So, do you know anything about flying an airplane? So you are in a state of unconscious incompetence because you don't know what you don't know. But you could go take a course and you could learn something about flying airplanes, right? And you've done a little bit of flying. Are you aware of the fact that now do you consider yourself capable of getting into an airplane now and flying? No. You're clear about that. Right, because you are in a state of conscious incompetence. You are aware of the fact that there's a lot of things you don't know about flying yet. Right? A lot. There's a lot. It's a lot. You have to learn a lot, right? And then finally, you're going to learn everything you need to learn. You're going to start practicing it. And if you put your full focus into it, you can start to fly. And you're doing it from a place of conscious competence. You got to put all of your, like when you're learning how to drive a car, you have to pay attention, otherwise you get distracted. And once you've done it a certain number of times, you go into a space that is called in the field unconscious competence, which means that it's functioning unconsciously, and you're doing it well unconsciously. Now, I have to go back and say that this map of the territory of how we learn was developed by people who are in their minds, and from the mind describing the mind. But it's very important to note that if you do something with full conscious awareness, that when it falls down, it doesn't go into your unconscious, it goes into your subconscious. The difference between an unconscious mind and a subconscious mind is that an unconscious mind does not know what the content is. I do not know what the program is in the operating system for this computer that makes it run. I have no idea what operating language is used. I don't know if they used BASIC or Pascal or Fortran or whatever they discovered. I have no clue what the code looks like, if X then Y. I have nothing. But if I were a computer programmer and I was designing this software or designing an app, then I would know what went into it. And once it was running, it would continue to run subconsciously. I would know what the instructions are in my computer, my operating system. If I design my own operating system, I want it to function subconsciously. I don't want to have to think about it. I want to just be able to fly or drive or make money or drive. Right? So what happens is that we start unconscious and we start learning, and everything we've learned it unconsciously. And it is part of our unconscious. Within that code, within that operating system, within that mind that we have, there is lots of bad code. There are lots of viruses. There's lots of contradictions. There's lots of primitive thought processes. There's things that don't make any sense today. They just don't make it. Like there's superstition. People are superstitious. Like it's okay if you're superstitious, but if you're using Wi-Fi, right, to communicate an internet, and you believe in ghosts, and you're afraid that the bad spirit will get you if you don't leave an offering, you're not living in this reality, because in a world of Wi-Fi, that's gravity and airplanes and laser beams, that's not like the world. It's not like the Muggles and the wizards, right? Harry Potter type of thing. It's not like there's a parallel universe where there's a magic happening that it goes against the laws of physics. Right? But we have all sorts of unconscious beliefs. So there is something of value of going through and bringing your full conscious awareness, updated as to who you are here and now. What beliefs do you have? What is the content of your mind? What are the operating systems? What are the meta processes? What is the code? What are the behavior patterns that you have learned and you have imprinted? Your grandfather that didn't eat chicken.
It's the same as for driving a car. Like right now, I drive a car. Automatically, somebody just passes by, you just automatically get out of the way.
Right.
But if I have to explain, for example, last time he was like, yeah, push the gas pedal. And I was like, you said this is my left or my right foot? I couldn't tell.
Right. Well, you learned it unconsciously, semi-consciously. We're semi-conscious. We humans are what we call consciousness is really semi-consciousness. Or we can say we're unconscious until we reach a certain level of complexity, reach puberty, and we become self-conscious, self-conscious, aware of ourselves. Right? And there's an evolutionary process. There's a growth. There's a developmental process. And then because we can send text messages and design airplanes and make nuclear bombs and drop them on people, we believe that we are fully conscious. Walk around and ask the people that you run into if they're fully conscious. And don't be surprised if somebody gets offended at the fact that you're questioning whether or not they're fully conscious. Of course I'm conscious. Of course I'm. Here I am. I'm awake. I'm talking to you, right? But there is a supra-consciousness that is beyond the consciousness of mind. Relative to that super-consciousness, mind is unconscious. Mind is an unconscious phenomenon. It is not fully conscious of itself. Until you are fully conscious of all of yourself, you're not fully conscious of yourself. You don't know yourself.
So you say to first the mind, then the unconscious.
Well, mind starts, the roots of mind are unconscious.
Yeah.
And then they evolve to a certain level of complexity where they become conscious. Right? When you reach puberty, there's a critical filter that kicks in, and there's a separation between what you learned when you were a child. Like, do you remember how you were treated when you were 1, 2, 3, 4? Really? All that's unconscious, but it's all there. It's at the roots of how you experience reality. It's controlling how you experience reality. Your experience of reality is subjected to the unconscious programming, conditionings, values, and beliefs that you picked up and keep adding to your life every single day. And if you don't pause and go back and look at it and pull out all the bad wiring, all the bad plumbing, and clear out all the viral thoughts, they are part of your subjective reality and experience. So you have to be able to look at them. You have to be able to go into them and identify them. You have to know what your programming is. When you do, you stop doing that stuff. 90% of it is junk that will fall out. You will not use, you don't need hardly anything. What you need are pattern recognition skills, language skills, logic skills, reasoning skills, mathematics skills, right? And how to identify something that is known. I saw a snake today. Let me take a picture of it. Let me look in a book. Let me check to see if it's venomous or not. I see a snake. I don't know what it is, but it's a known snake, unless I discover a new species. And then I discovered a new species of snake, right? And here's a picture to show it, right? But now it's known. It's Raphael's snake. What?
That's what you name it.
That's what I do. Not my else thing, right? So that's the known, right? There's the unknown. Within the unknown, there's the unknowable. The unknowable is all that which cannot be known by mind, but can be felt or experienced. Just like sounds are not visible to the eye. Light is not hearable to the ears. So you use your eyes and you use your ears. Then you use your nose for smells and you use your skin, right? And it's your eyes and your ears that see and hear the mosquito and your skin that feels where it lands, right? And then your sense of self-awareness that allows your hand to reach out and slap it. And all these are happening at once. Does that make sense? So you want to go deep into how you function, how your mind functions, what your thinking process is, what's creating the roots of this thinking process. You can then clear them out. And you can create your own operating system that allows you to subconsciously thrive.
So it's all about the subconscious.
It's all about doing it subconsciously, because when it's being done subconsciously, you have bandwidth to pick up on new information, recognize new patterns.
So subconsciously is without pressing the button.
Sorry?
Subconscious is without pressing the button.
Without pressing the button. Some things require pressing a button, but you are choosing the buttons that you are pressing. Right now, the buttons are pressing you. As a matter of fact, we're herd animals. We function in small groups and in large herds. Bangkok has 12 to 20 million people in it. That's a large herd. But the moose in Canada are found in 1 million or 2 million running around. So it's like mammals this size, this sensitive, to function better in herds. As a matter of fact, if you look at your body, if you look at all the mammals, all the animals that are our size, is there any animal with softer, thinner skin, weaker, more useless nails, and least effective teeth? Is there any animal out there that you can bite or scratch to death that's your size? Nothing. You can't run away from anything. You can't fight anything back. You're naked in the jungle. Anything that wants to eat you, that is big enough to eat you, you're in trouble. Right? So you have to be able to sense this creature from far away. Somehow you have to be able to sense it, right? Well, you can. You can sense it from far away.
But they also sense it, for example, I have that with my best friend, with Malcolm, that I sense him all the time. That when you said, I feel his sadness.
Sure. Yes, of course. So these are your mirror neurons that are functioning. So they've been discovered a while back ago, and there's a lot of research that's being done on them. But you're discovering that for yourself. Right? So if you are at a party and everybody's happy, and one person's suicidal or sick or dying or dead, whatever, depressed or whatever the story is, they have the potential to bring the whole party down. But if enough people keep it going and keep dancing and keep, come on, just dance, come on, dance, shake it out. They also have the potential of letting go of their, right? You can absorb the energy of your environment, right?
But even if they're not present.
Yeah. Unconsciously, we're feeling what other people are feeling.
Yeah.
Now, if you are caught up with your own emotions and your own emotionalities and sentiments and sentimentalities and whatever, right? You will be a little, in one way, isolated from what other people are feeling. So you have your own problems. So you're not worried about anybody else, consciously, but unconsciously. If the other person is also feeling a little bit stressed and worried, and the other one is also feeling a little bit stressed and worried, all of this will start to build and resonate. And there are entire cities where you walk into and it just doesn't feel very pleasant because nobody's really happy. As a matter of fact, most parts of the world today, most people are not really enjoying life very much. They're stressed about money, about health, about politics, about religion, about there's fear all around. Right? So, by knowing where you are as far as you are concerned, you will then feel what other people are feeling. This is very valuable. See, when there's a bunch of birds and you startle one of them and it flies off, all of the others in the flock fly away with it. The fact that they can feel that the other one was startled and flew away and they all just kind of go almost at the same time saves those birds, right? I experience on a regular basis, just being clear about myself, something can happen that can make me wonder, okay, what's going on? And then I resolve it, and then I'm clear. So my default is being clear emotionally, psychologically, physically. I'm just neutral, clear. That's my baseline. I have been in public spaces where suddenly I begin to feel fear. So I look into it, and I ask myself, am I creating this fear? There's no thought creating this fear, so it's not coming from the memory. There's no monster creeping up on me from behind, so I'm not in any direct fear myself. Check. Right? That person over there, that person's feeling fear. Interesting. I wonder why they're feeling fear. Well, because over there, somebody else is. I used to have a hammock here. I was sitting here in my hammock reading a nice book, a beautiful afternoon like today. And Jontra's sitting here reading another book. There's restlessness in the air. Jontra's kind of restless. Got her? She'll figure it out. Go back to my book. She gets up, she walks over there, she walks over here, she walks over there, she sits back down again. I notice her. Okay, something. She's restless about something. I look around, I don't see any danger, so I stay relaxed and calm. She feels something, and she doesn't know what she feels. There's some sort of danger. Something is bothering her. She's not clear about what it is. So, in case she knows herself well enough to make sure she wants to, okay, let me get a second sample of that. So she goes up and she takes a shower. Which is a great way of clearing herself. She doesn't need a bucket of ice cold water for it. A cool shower is plenty. Plunge in the ocean. She takes a shower. Comes back down, sits down again. The tension starts to build up again. Now I notice she's gotten tense, she's come back clear. I can feel it. Right? And now she's getting tense again. What is it? Danger. There's a problem somewhere. There's a danger. Danger. Where? There's a snake. There's a snake somewhere. I know there's a snake somewhere. I'm like, snake? What? There's no snake. She goes, there. There's a snake right there. I can see it. I'm like, there's no snake there. That's a branch that's so rude. Just relax. No, there's a snake there. There's a snake there. And under the rocks, right there, right behind you, sure enough, there was a 7.5-foot king cobra. 7.5-foot king cobra. So we call one of our staff, a Burmese worker, who comes down, sees it. He's like, "That's a cobra." And they're like terrified. Well, I have no contextual experience of a king cobra myself. I've seen other snakes. I had a ball python as a pet for a while. I was bit by it. I understand. I know what a snake is. That I have a certain sense of a snake. There have been snakes here. I've had experiences with snakes, which I can also describe with you. But I'd never experienced a king cobra. So they identify it as a king cobra. I'm still doubtful because to me it just looks like a dried root. Okay, they're afraid, so I'm going to go check. And we have a snake catching stick from the previous owners, which is basically a PVC pipe, a 1-inch PVC pipe with a rope that's tied on one end and a rope that goes through, and it's like a loop. So I go to approach it, and I see it, and it's a snake, and it goes around the other side. So I just balance myself, still clear, and I go to poke at it with this 4-meter long stick. And before I know it, it strikes, and I catch it. And I pull it up out of it, and it's longer than me. And now I'm feeling waves of anger, rage, and terror going through my body. Like when you have two walkie-talkies too close to each other and they start squealing. Anyway, we catch it, we kill it, and it's right here. We humans, we develop these language tools, and we develop them without knowing the power that they have. And we don't realize that our minds are capable of creating images that are so lifelike. As a matter of fact, most people have dreams, and their dreams are better than how they perceive reality. That's why they chase their dreams. Life is going to be better. They don't see how beautiful things are already. They want to improve on reality. Right? So we have a capacity to Photoshop reality. And we can do that in a way that makes us desire and chase after it, or fear and run away from it. So you're walking around the path at night, and now we were talking about snakes, and there's going to be a rope or a root, and you're going to see it, and you might turn that into a snake and jump out of the way. And then you'll look back, and you'll laugh because well, it was just a rope. Right? But if you didn't do that, you might actually step on a snake and get eaten, or get bitten. Right? So that would be worse. So you can laugh at yourself, but you can also be happy that you have a capacity to jump out of the way before the rope eats you. Because it could actually be a snake. Right? Wouldn't it be horrible to see a snake and to think it's a rope and pick it up and try to tie it around your neck, and then there it is. Right? So we have the capacity of distorting reality, augmenting reality, to create a fear or a desire. And you need to see all the thoughts that you have, all the content of your mind that is around fears. You need to see all the content of your mind that is based on desires. And they're both about wanting to change things the way that you are, the way that they are, because if it's not good enough, then you want it to be better, right? Or you want to get away from it. Fears and desires. And the meditation techniques and the approaches towards life, the simple approaches, the pre-algebra approaches towards life, fears were fears and desires were desires. Something happened in the last 100 years, the last 80 years, that many people are not aware of. One of the things that happened is that Sigmund Freud working with, let's say, very disturbed individuals, people who are violent and deranged. He had a couple of discoveries that were quite powerful and quite insightful. The first thing is that he had some first really good insights into the fact that we have an unconscious. Most people were not even conscious of the fact that they had an unconscious. Now just about everybody knows, well, yeah, I have an unconscious. Yeah, I did an unconscious. There, I have this. But they don't know that what is the content of their unconsciousness. If you know what the content of your unconsciousness, you are no longer unconscious. So the meditation is the journey of the awakening, is the journey of bringing awareness and acceptance into your unconscious so that you are no longer unconscious. And you can function subconsciously. His insights into consciousness and unconsciousness came from studying these criminals, these deranged, violent people. However, he found that he had better data if he analyzed their dreams. Because dreaming is a simple form of thinking. It's thinking with images. And all minds, all brains dream. A dog will dream that it's chasing a rabbit or a cat or something. It wakes up and it's disturbed, and a cat will do the same thing. There's nothing wrong with that. What he found is that well, over thousands of years of being unconscious and of doing horrible things to each other and to ourselves, the human collective unconscious has collected tremendous fears and desires, monsters, violence, ogres, trolls, orcs, lust, extreme desire, extreme fear, hatred, anger, rage is a product of extreme fear. And this is accumulated, and for some people, they can't handle it. It's too much for them. And some changes them, it alters them, it flips a switch, and they start to express themselves in very violent, dangerous ways, and then they end up in prison or in a mental hospital. And he studied these people. And he opened up doors to the unconscious, and he started talking about what's happening deep down below. Nobody wanted to hear it. It was scary. It was terrifying. He was not accepted. His teachings were not accepted by other psychotherapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists in Europe or in the US. He was saying things that were just too yucky and too disturbing. Nobody wanted to open up that can of worms. He had a nephew named Edward Bernays. Google it. BBC has a 4-part documentary called A Century of Self, or The Century of Self, based on the works of Edward Bernays. You can download it for free. It's brilliant. Edward Bernays, sort of genius. Bernays, like the sauce, I think. Bernays, Bernaise. If you Google it, BBC, Edward Bernays, Century of Self, it'll come on. He read the works of his uncle, and he had a flash of creative insight. And he thought to himself, he must have looked inside and known he had his fears and his desires. Right? So man goes on to something. Fears and desires. What can I do with fears and desires? What can I do with fears and desires to make money? I wonder if I take an object like this walkie-talkie, or this car, or this cigarette, or this perfume, and I make people desire it, and I also make people fear not having it. What if I cross-links people's fears and desires to manipulate them into buying what I want them to buy, or accepting what I want them to accept? So he developed a science around using imagery to manipulate people's minds so that their fears and their desires get cross-linked so they can be manipulated by some external source. He did this in 30s or 40s, in the 40s or 50s, is when he mastered this field. It's called the field of PR, public relations. He quietly and secretly sold to the highest bidders his mass consumer manipulation technology. His highest paying clients were political interests and organizations, religious interests and organizations, banking interests, military, and for decades, they used television and radio and parades and multimedia sources to cross-link people's fears and desires, manipulating them into being the happy consumers, satisfied people that we have today.
Awesome.
Isn't that awesome? He made millions. You can see him, fat old, ugly little troll, smoking a cigar, sitting in his big chair, surrounded by all his gold and this. He made millions and millions and millions and millions, tricking people. His campaigns were so effective that before he was hired by one of the big tobacco companies, worldwide, women who are orders of magnitude more grounded and sensitive and sensible and earthbound than men did not smoke cigarettes very much. Men were the primary smokers. He did one campaign where he had women looking a certain way, dressed a certain way, smoking in a certain way, with certain visual cues and context, turning the cigarette into the female phallic symbol of empowerment. And to this day, more women smoke all around the world than men. In every country, there's more women smokers than men smokers all around the world. One campaign. It was the some parade in New York City on May Day or something like that. Some springtime parade. He had fashion models and actresses come out, walking in the streets, smoking cigarettes. Winston or Marlboro or whatever companies paid him millions to create this, and that's it. From then on, women who in any way feel disempowered or insecure around the world will pick up a cigarette and smoke.
And the same thing as with Gillette from the Riverdales. They were like, we have to expand our market, like, what can we do? And then they started like, women should shave as well. And that's how the whole women shaving thing happened.
So, we were all born in a world that was already flooded with these viruses, these mental viruses, these memes that cross-link fears and desires. So here's what happens. Here's the mechanics of it. If you were born a couple thousand years ago, you have certain fears, you have certain desires. You realize that they're silly, they're not getting you anywhere. No amount of gold or diamonds and rubies satisfies you, and your fears don't satisfy it anyway. So you go and renounce all of that, sit under a tree, relax, and you wake up from that and you laugh at all the fools that are doing it. That's about as complicated as it was back then. Then life gets more complex. There's dozens of billions, 100 billion more people on this planet. We have wars, we have terror, we have overpopulation, we have all sorts of shit that comes up. And now we have all this emotional junk that fills up. Osho was born in 1921, and he was 1931, and he was enlightened and awakened, free of his childhood mind and conditionings by the age he was 21. In the 1950s, and he lived in India, in rural India. So he was not exposed to any of this. The Western world became inundated and flooded with PR, where it's common practice to cross-link people's fears and desires. Everybody does it. As a matter of fact, you go to a personal development course and they teach you different techniques like the Dickens process to find your deepest fears and just pull them out and eliminate them and throw them away. And high-end coaches cross-link your fears and desires. Your desires to be free of it with your fear of what your life will be if you don't get rid of it. And then you take something that you don't know what it is and you imagine that you have pulled it out, replaced it by a beautiful message from God or the Creator or whatever you believe in, and then you take the old thing and you throw it and you burn it in the sun. And then just to make sure, you imagine what your life would be like if you had kept it, and you scream and wail and gnash your teeth and beat your chest and pull your hair, and you anchor in, I don't want to have this, I want to have this. Of course, that doesn't creating, yeah. But however, that doesn't make you more conscious. That makes you more unconscious. Now, this isn't done with any bad intention. It's the best that people who are working within their mind can use. It's the best technology there is for motivating people. Is saying, here, follow this carrot, and here, let me light a fire under your ass if you don't go. So then you go. And that's how you motivate yourself, right? With conscious awareness, you can use it in an intelligent manner. But when it's done unconsciously, or when it's done to manipulate people, here's the end result. If you have repressed emotions, you jump up and down, you scream them out, you kick them out, you relax, right? If you feel guilty and shame about your body, you just get naked in front of a mirror, you touch yourself, you play with yourself, you deal with the emotions, the feelings, the guilt that goes, you eventually release it. Now you can sit quietly and you can see your fears for what they are, you can see your desires for what they are, and you can laugh at the illusion that they are and how they really prevent you from being present in the moment. However, if you were born in a world where fears cross-linked to desires is all that's going on, you need to understand that your mind, no matter how much vipassana you do, if you don't actually see where your unconscious fears are turning on your unconscious desires, which are then triggering on more unconscious fears, which are then triggering on more unconscious desires, you will never, it won't stop by itself. In other words, you need to learn a higher order algebra, a higher level of complexity than the poisons. The honey has to be yummier than the poison. Chasing fears and desires, you have to see that it's not in your highest value, highest interest to do that. You have to be aware that this is happening. So wherever you find fears, also look for your desires that are cross-linked to it. I'm not interested in how good of an experience you're having. I'm not interested in how enlightened or awakened you are. I'm not interested in all the magical powers that you have. I couldn't care less about any of that. If you want to have a conversation, I want to know, how do you take yourself out of that amazing magical space? What are your poisons? I want to know what your weaknesses are. Because if you can tell me what they are, if you can share with them clearly how you put yourself to sleep, then I know that you've figured something out of value. If you can tell me how awake you are, I couldn't care less how awake you are. I want to know how you put yourself to sleep. Then you know yourself. There's no way that somebody can come and the light of the Guru or of God can touch you in the third eye. It doesn't work that way. The only way that you can find your own bliss and your own peace is you have to go to your own hell and stop making it for yourself. And if you cannot describe to me the road to your own personal hell, like the worst thing ever in the world, I don't have any interest in what you think is nirvana or heaven. Because you don't have to do anything to create nirvana or heaven. You just have to stop creating hell. And if you already know how to create hell for yourself and you stop doing it, then you have a blissful experience. Just like you don't go around poking yourself in the eye, or cutting off your fingers, or doing something else. You don't sabotage yourself. How do you sabotage yourself? This is more interesting to me. Because whatever you do, other people do as well. And whenever you encounter someone that can explain to you how they go out of their way and sabotage themselves, that's how, then you know that they're the ones that are capable of not sabotaging themselves and be naturally empowered.
Yeah, but for me, for example, being here already for 2 weeks, I don't sabotage myself here that much.
Right. So how do you sabotage yourself at home?
Yeah.
Well, then, if you're here, can you figure out how you do that?
That with my thoughts, I can sabotage myself completely.
Right. So you look into how you sabotage, and you learn what you can, and you go as deep as you can. And then, how do you know? Well, one day you leave here and you go back to your matrix. You go back to your circles, and you see what comes up again. Or you choose to go live in a hut somewhere, or a temple somewhere, or a mountaintop cave, and you never come out. And then you never see how you sabotage yourself again. But if you want to know, what your weaknesses are, right? If you want to know what your desires are, what your fears are, first you see what you can do to clear it, you isolate yourself from them, and then you see what you can do to clear it, and then you go out and you test yourself. You have to go back and see. Can you keep that same grounded, present, Satori One state that you have here? Can you do that back at home? Can you do it with your family? Can you do it with your boss? Can you do it with your lover? Can you do it? And then you will see that you can to a certain degree, but some things are going to come up. Those are things that are only going to be triggered by this other person. So then now, your next challenge is going to be, well, are you going to keep doing that, or are you going to figure out what you're doing unconsciously, how you're being triggered by this person or this culture or this situation, and will you stop doing it? So that you can live at peace there. Now, what you may find is that you learn how to balance yourself, and you're balanced and very okay here. Then you go back home, and things start off good, and they get very difficult, and then you find a way to balance things out. but that it's a continuous struggle. So you think, okay, I can do it. So you keep working at it, and you realize that you're going to hit a limitation somewhere. When you hit that limitation, it's time to go live somewhere else for a while. For example, I got as far as I could living where I was in Southern California with the lifestyle that I had. And I had to leave that matrix and go to another matrix where there would be completely different kinds of triggers. For me, it was essential to go live in a place where I couldn't understand the language, I couldn't read the street signs, and I did not fit into the cultural at all. And then learn what I needed to be able to thrive in that space. After spending a certain amount of time in Asia and Thailand, I went back to the US, and I was shocked. I was just stunned by the amount of information coming in from the street signs, from overhearing people on the street, from the metro, from the bus, everybody's talking to me. And I could understand everything. It kept activating and triggering me, and I realized, I kind of tuned that out. It used to not bother me, but it was always there. And now that I'm living in a part of the world that I don't understand people, I'm free from that. It doesn't mean anything to me when people talk. I don't understand. It doesn't trigger me in any way. I get two people start fighting. Of course, I know what a fight is, so I can tell that I see two lovers. I can tell that I know what's going on. But other than that, I have 90% of the noise is gone. So I went back to Thailand, and I really appreciated the quiet. And then I thought, okay, I've got this. Now I'm going to start learning how to read and write this language and speak it better so that I can start integrating it myself into society. Because I've mastered not being a part of it. Now I want to start working my way in. So I started learning reading and writing, and I started recognizing, and signs started meaning, right? Meaning started coming in. I could read a sign. I could start to understand people and overhear people on the street. And you know what? They talk the same nonsense that everybody else talks about all the rest of the world. It's the same discussions. It's the same TV shows. It's whether this beer or that beer, this football team or that football team, this political party or that political party. My religion can beat up your religion. I stopped learning how to read and write and understand the language, and I eased back, and I put myself in a comfortable zone where I can communicate what I need to get myself into trouble and back out of trouble. And I can find a translator, I can figure it out. If I need to communicate, I will, but as far as the general public is concerned, I just don't need the extra noise. And that allowed me to go deeper and deeper and deeper into myself. Now I have range of motion, I can communicate with people according to my needs, as much as I need to. When I'm in the US, when I'm in a Spanish-speaking country or a French-speaking country, I can't get away from the noise and be in a city. Where do I go where I don't understand what people are saying? And it's triggering my mind. Today it doesn't matter. Because I don't have that mind anymore that is triggered by it. But in my process of getting to that point, I needed to have these different experiences. I needed to. I'm not saying you need to. But if I take a jigsaw puzzle, right? And I pull a piece out, you put it back in, it fits, right? When it's in the jigsaw puzzle, when it fits in its matrix, it's bound by its surroundings, right? If I pull it out, I can stretch it into different shapes. If I take this piece, my jigsaw puzzle, I'm the piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and I take it to a different matrix, I'm not accountable to the Thai culture the way the Thai people are. Because I'm a Farang. And I'm never going to be, and that's an advantage to me. Because I don't want to fit into their little box. I want to stretch myself in all the areas that their box allows me to, that my box at home doesn't. That my cultural box doesn't allow me to stretch. Then eventually, wherever you go around, you master your energy space. That we do. But it's a journey to get there. So for me, my steps of the journey were first, learn how to create little bubbles. My home, a little bed and breakfast somewhere, I'd go out to the desert, or I'd go up to the mountains and create a space where I could just feel safe and secure and free myself. Dance, cry, break things that I can break that are breakable with the intention of breaking them, right? Burn things that need to be burned, stuff like that. Clear myself. And when it comes to the finer details of clearing your mind, I had to go to a place where I could do it without being disturbed and still have all my needs met. Which meant go to a place where I don't understand the other people, but I have access to everything that I need. That created the space for me to drop my mind. And I slipped out of it, like a snake slips out of its skin. And then each and every time I need to do something, I create a mind, which is I create the content in order to do what I need to do. And when I'm finished, I drop it. Just like when I need to go to the bank, I dress in a certain way. When I need to go swimming, I dress in a different way. When I come home, I take it all off. I just run around naked. Does that make sense? So these are the basic first steps. Just go, create your own little bubble, go in, see what you can find. What can you find when you clear out your emotions, and then the thoughts that you have, what categories do they fall into? Attachments to things, relationships, beings, random thoughts about life, love, sex, money, death, God, spirit, body, family, emotions, mind, the future, past. What else? What else is there to think about? There's nothing original. You don't need 90 to 99%. So once you clear that out, then you have plenty of space for whatever you want, whatever is natural for you to do. This is what you want to be able to find. But you need a systematic approach to clearing it out, because all conspiracy theories aside, when people do conspire and they do plot and they are cunning, a lot of money goes into creating a society of robots and slaves and zombies. There are a lot of things that have intentionally been put into that. Yeah, the Education Reform Act of the early 1900s by the Rockefellers and Carnegies was intentionally to create an educational system that will put people robots into offices and factories to work, and to accept their salary and to be happy about it, and they don't want to accept it to go into the prison complex or the military complex. And this was designed. And with the help of Edward Bernays in PR, there's very few aspects of our lives that have not been touched by this. So, okay, it is what it is. So what? Great. What a challenge. Well, let's just untangle it. Once you untangle it, you can. Let's see what. If you decide to break out of it and to be a revolutionary or a reactionary, well, there's room for you too. There's a place for you there as well. So it's still the same mind, it's still the same ego, doing the same thing. If you find ways of untangling yourself and being fully aware of the recipes, you can talk the talk, you can walk the walk, you can dance the dance, but you're not attached to it. So you can go in and you can have the conversations you need to have, you get the resources that allow you to live well, sleep well, and make the world a better place. Isn't that nice? That's pretty amazing. Yeah, well, you can do that. We do. That's what we're doing. But we did it by fully accepting what is. I don't fight against the system. I accept that this is the only way things can be. We start from unconsciousness. We've created this amazing, crazy mess. It's a miracle how lost and retarded we are as humans. That's the most incredible thing. And we did it ourselves. So and many people have figured different things out. So as you figure things out, map them out, and know that it's part of the process that we all need to participate in. But not everyone is going to be ready for it. And if you are and you can, then go ahead. At least this will give you a taste. Final warning. The world is yucky. It's yuckifying itself at an accelerating pace. In order to be more present, more awakened, and more clear, you have to be more sensitive. It means you have to accept, taste, smell, feel the yuckiness, and understand that it's part of the reality around you. It just is. There's no way to avoid it. Now, but there are definitely ways of attenuating it, and being able to generate the abundance to go to a beautiful place and have these experiences is part of the experience. But then, wherever there is abundance, there are ways of using that creatively. So the fact that there is abundance of yuckiness doesn't mean that you cannot find creative ways of using that. So stay strong. But you're going to feel more yuckiness. And as you break out of your mental matrix and psychological, psychosocial structures and frameworks, there's going to be backlashes from family members, friends, lovers, people who are close to you that are they're going to be Agent Smiths. They're going to try to pull you back into the matrix. And you're going to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, I already experienced this.
Right? So it means that your relationships will change. The people you relate to will change. Things you want to do will change. But anything that goes towards feeling yummier, quieter, more peaceful, more energized, more creative, more at one, well, I like that. I'm unapologetic about that. I left everyone and everything and invited everyone who wants to go figure it out to share resources and to just come along, and nobody wants to. So I just did it myself. And then one day I met a woman who was ready for something completely new. She was so ready that she was ready to go, okay, I'm done, game over. And then we met and she was like, you're interesting. I want to spend more time with you. Can I move in with you? I was like, sure, let's go get your stuff. And then a week she'd moved in. I was like, okay, now what? All right, so read this book. Try this. Let's do some yoga. Let's try some. Find your poisons.
What's Satori level 3 and
3 and 4. So, Satori 1 is being at one with yourself inside your skin. Inner world. Clear. Satori 2 is outer world, balanced and thriving in the outer world. But there's still a distinction between the inner world and the outer world.
4?
This is my inner world, that's the outer world. I take care of my inner world and I learn how to go out into the outer world. You do that enough, you explore enough of the outer world, and you get to a place where the distinction starts to disappear between what is the inner world and what is the outer world. That's Satori 3. Satori 3 is when you are no longer see yourself as separate from the outside world. Now, your body is always going to feel itself separate from the outside world. It has a sense of self. So, I'm not saying that stops. Because tomorrow, I find myself wherever, in Singapore or wherever it is, and whatever's happening there, I might not be in balance with it, but I can make sure that I'm in balance with myself. Right? So, it can open, it can close. So I can see. Then I can relax into that space and start to master being in Singapore. And eventually, me in Singapore, whatever, there's no difference. Right? Does that make sense? But then I may go to Amsterdam. I've never been there. It would be difficult for me to enter Amsterdam in a state of Satori 3. If I have a long flight, I'll barely be in a state of Satori 1. But after a rest, a massage, a good meal, I relax back into it, all systems are go. Great, Satori 1. Let's go out into the street. What's happening? I don't know the language, the culture, the people, what's happening, what's right, what's wrong, which way traffic. I have to figure all that out. So I spent a few days there, I spent a few weeks there, and suddenly kind of get it, kind of flowing with the rhythm. I stayed there long enough, and now I feel like I am part of. I've integrated that into my being. The entire time I'm aware of this process. I watch it grow and expand. Right? Does that make sense? It's like I have a sense of self, which is contained to this body. Then it expands out to include Jantra, and now Jantra and Nampu. It extends out to the space. This is a territory. Right? So if you come and pee on this side of the tree, I might go and growl at you. Because you're on my side of the tree. That's your side of the tree. If I go pee on your side of the tree, you can growl at me. I accept that. That's part of, right, the physicality of living in the world. Right? I feel very at home in Thailand. So wherever I am, I'm okay. Right? In Bangkok, I know where to go. Here or there, whatever. Right? I'm aware of that process. And eventually, you just kind of flow into it. You're part of Thailand. You're part of the world. Jantra and I spent the last year traveling all around the world. And we spent over 200 days traveling.
Wow. With Nampu?
No, not with Nampu. Just the two of us. Nampu was here with her mother, with her grandparents. And we spent a lot of time traveling. And at first there was a discomfort getting into an airplane, going to the airport, getting into an airplane, arriving in a new city. And packing each time. And then we got really good at it. You create your systems, your way of approaching life. And suddenly it's really easy. You just grab a bag, you just go here and go there, and you can be very spontaneous. And whenever you arrive in a place that's uncomfortable, there's sort of like a closing, a shrinking. And then you recharge yourself, and then you open up, and you go out and explore, expand yourself, right? And after traveling all around the world, we got to a space where no matter where we are, we feel at home and expanding in all territories of life. The world, we feel like we've entered a space of Satori 2 with the globe. Right? Because how big of a space? You mean how much? This beach? This island? This country? This region of the world? Right? Where are you in? What is your comfort zone? Being able to expand that. So it's progressive growths. But the core root of it always is still your Satori 1. You have to be clear and balanced with yourself. And you practice Satori 2 with a partner. Because to live in a world with no other human beings that you relate to is relatively easy compared to living in a world with other human beings with their own personal physical boundaries, right? That you need to learn to overlap. And then there's brief moments where you are simply in flow, and there's no you are just the universe in flow, and you're not even aware of it. You completely forget that you are the universe in flow. You are simply the universe in flow, and that's known as the fourth. Just the fourth. It's not named after anything. It's just the fourth. Don't. There's nothing to discuss there. You no longer need to be aware of the fact that you need to be aware. You're just simply fully functioning subconsciously. But none of them are sustainable 100%. Think of a sailboat with a keel, right? The wind blows and it starts to lean over, and the wind stops in it. There's a storm, the boat might roll, it might flip over. But if it's properly built, the keel will shoot straight up. So those candles, those trick candles that you can't blow out, you want to get there. No matter where you go. And if your candle isn't being blown out by the storm on a regular basis, you're not actually challenging yourself in growth. You need to be able to get to a place where nothing puts out your candle, nothing puts out your light, nothing knocks you off balance, that you can't be automatically, effortlessly back. But the only way to do that is to go out there and practice. How else? Just stay in a little bubble somewhere. How are you going to grow your capacity to be centered and balanced? If you never stand up, you never fall. You stand up and you fall, you stand up and suddenly you're standing. Now you take a step and you fall. You don't get up again, you're never going to get anywhere. So you get up again, you take another step, and before you know it, it's a while before you trip and fall. Then you learn, you get up, and you keep going. But if you're not every once in a while tripping and falling, then you're not exploring your full range of your territory.